Hey kids, do you want to learn by seeing a glaring example of blatant misogyny? How it works and why it's so problematic? Well, check this out.
In regards to black women not being protected, let me first state the obvious. No man should put his hands on a woman.
Is that really the obvious? Because Pick Me Barbie over here seems to think her qualifier for horrible thinking is somehow the obvious, when it's just a qualifier. She specifically says in regards to black women not being protected. That's a qualifier, not the obvious. She's about to make an argument about the topic of black women being protected, as if it's up for debate or something. Then she adds to her qualifier, which is thinly disguised as the obvious. Men should not put their hands on women. Now, that should be the obvious. Unfortunately, it's part of her qualifier in which she's going to make her argument. It's exactly the same thing as when white people go, I think racism is wrong, but... And if we had a nickel for every time white people said something like that, we can buy and ruin a social media company like some racist rich guys I know. But of course, we get this aborted love child of Andrew Tate and Kevin Samuels, duetting America's least favorite pick-me, about to tell us why, in fact, black women should not be protected while not actually saying black women should not be protected. And you just know his hamper's gonna be full of a lot of sticky socks as he goes full parasocial stand over the things this young woman is saying. And I'm going to react to it. Well, as much of it as I can stand, at least. And you get to watch. Isn't like fun? Let's rock.
We desire protection, but sometimes what we don't understand is that true protection comes with a level of control.
You see, black women, in order to get protection, you must give up control. You must submit, because it's only through giving up control that you can get real protection. And can you guess who she thinks should be in control?
Bodyguards are a good example.
No, really they're not. Bodyguards, by definition, are people hired to protect clients from a perceived threat. Right-wingers and their leaders and their politicians have bodyguards. And they're evil to their political cores. Dictators have bodyguards. Celebrities have bodyguards because they are members of a given population who think boundaries are just suggestions they don't necessarily have to take seriously. Either you're paying the bodyguard or those bodyguards are a member of your circle, your friends, your family. But most bodyguards do not guard bodies for free. Therefore, they are employees. The members of the general public are not going to be stepping up for free to stop any given incel from white vanning Taylor Swift. She has to hire a bodyguard for that. And if you want to remain safe in that way, then you hire a bodyguard. So bodyguards, in this case, is an awful example as to why protection requires control. But let's hear what she has to say about the bodyguard thing.
A bodyguard will make their client leave from a dangerous place. The bodyguard has to know all the details: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And the client has to listen to the bodyguard and follow the instruction that the bodyguard gives them.
Except, no matter how you look at this scenario, the bodyguard is the employee of the body they're guarding. The client has all the power in this relationship. The bodyguard is the employee. Simply put, a bodyguard can be ignored or fired. And depending on who hired the bodyguard and what exactly they're guarding, their duties are, in fact, prescribed by the person or entity or company that hired them. And this is why the analogy of the bodyguard does not work at all to qualify the point this young woman thinks she's making.
It's really an agreement between all parties involved. When the person who needs protecting does not follow the instruction and the direction of the protector, it puts the protector in a situation where they're more likely to lose their life.
Wait, what? Notice how quickly bodyguard turned into protectors. The protectors are obviously black men. So when a woman is attacked, it is absolutely her fault for not listening to her protector. protectors. Better yet, a woman being assaulted could get her bodyguard/protectors hurt or unalive. What? I mean, obviously nothing could be worse than a woman being assaulted in her apartment, running the risk of some would-be protector getting hurt. The woman potentially got that protector hurt by being assaulted. And usually she's being assaulted by other bodyguard or protectors. I never thought that I would ever see a bad take get even worse. I didn't think this bad take could get any worse than that one, and yet I'd be wrong about that.
I have 4 brothers and a father, and I listen to their instruction even when they're not around. They have told me to stay away from certain places if I'm by myself or if it's late at night. They've also advised me not to be drunk or high in certain situations. Even though my brothers, my dad, and the men in my life protect me, I in turn protect them by listening to them and following their instruction.
So pick me. Choose me. Love me.
You see, ladies, when you're attacked, no matter what kind of attack, SA by a stranger, or husband, or boyfriend, or brother, or father, or cousin, or uncle, this is all your fault for not listening to your protectors, who know better, therefore that implies they are your betters. Did you get drunk as some random guy drags you into an alleyway and repeatedly grapes you, only to be arrested, convicted, but let go by a bodyguard/protector who happened to be a judge? Because that rando who dragged that incapacitated woman and repeatedly graped that incapacitated woman was a promising young man. But according to this future advisor to every incel and men's right activist, that was her fault for going out and getting drunk. Are you a 12-year-old great victim of an adult male, maybe between the ages of 29 and 60? Well, obviously it's your fault for not listening to your protectors. So when stepdad creeps into your room, anybody else with a penis would have told you, well, just don't be in your bedroom when stepdad's home. Because even though all the statistics and all the numbers shows that these things repeatedly happen to women by men in their proximity, no, it is not any of those guys' faults, because I'm surprised she never said it in this video, not all men. It is not the fault of the men who attacked you because they had proximity. It is your fault for giving them proximity, because I'm sure some guy somewhere, because I'm sure some protector somewhere told you, put a skirt on, your uncle's coming over. Isn't that something? Yes, everything she just said in that last clip makes about as much sense to me as it does to you. Or if it didn't make sense to you, let me know in the comment section so I know who to block.
They don't have to come to my defense in some wild scenario, because if I listened to them, I wouldn't have been there in the first place.
You hear that, infants? Toddlers, preschoolers, tweeners, teens, young adult women, college age, and even elderly women? You can be like her if you just listen to men. Because if you listen to men, then men don't have to come to your defense when other men attack you. Some guy hits you over the head, drags you in a van, and locks you in a basement. You are not only the cause of that, you are also potentially the cause of injury to the men who will come to defend you. I mean, ladies, how many times have you been assaulted only to have your fathers or brothers or uncles or cousins or friends come to your defense like Batman swooping down for the rooftops, and only ending up getting hurt coming to your defense because you didn't listen to them in the first place? It happens all the time, right? I mean, remember all those men who lost their lives coming to the defense of a woman who was hit by a brick because she wouldn't give another protector her number? Weren't the hospitals just full of her fathers and brothers and husbands and friends and all the other protectors around her coming to her defense? It's not like they just stood there and watched it happen, is it? Because it was her fault for getting hit with that brick in the first place, or for making sketch videos of her smacking people, or because she breathes. I don't know. It was her fault because she did not listen to her other protectors. And I know what you're thinking, at least I'm thinking it. This could not possibly go more downhill from this nonsense. And just like I was the last time, you'd be wrong.
And this is another thing I feel like is pertinent to say, and I know folks ain't gonna like this one. I don't have sons right now, but when I do have sons, I'm going to teach them that there's a difference between diamonds and dirt and rubies and rocks.
Oh, bad take, Barbie. Now I see why they discontinued your line. And think Ra or Cthulhu or whichever pantheon currently has dibs on your soul that she doesn't have children whose minds she can poison with this nonsense. Because this kind of thinking is poison. But alas, she's a young woman, so there's still the possibility of a future Hotep SAer, wife beater, or if it's a girl, totally victim. I mean, it's highly likely she is an attractive young woman. I don't know for sure. She could end up a cat lady at 60. Who knows? But from the image she's projecting, listening to the things that she's saying is almost a foregone conclusion. She will not believe her daughter. In fact, she'll probably blame her daughter. Now, I don't actually know. This young woman might be just pulling an act, another right-wing grift. So I might be making a prediction towards someone who just might end up being nothing more than a TikTok character. But people, or even women, especially black women, who espouses the philosophy of dehumanizing other people, paving the way for excuses for anything that happens to them, are the type who will tend to blame their daughters for their abuse by a father, a stepfather, a family member, a perfect stranger, her mother's Tinder date, because that is the kind of thing that her kind of thinking leads to. If she follows her own philosophy, even her own daughters must be judged under the idiotic analogy of diamonds and dirt, rubies and rocks. And that one is an old one. It's the purest form of the evil of respectability politics. Because if her daughter was attacked, obviously she's dirt. I mean, seriously, how dare she try to trust anyone around her? She must see men as protectors, and if one of those protectors beats her up, essays her, then it's her fault for not listening to the other protectors, because those protectors must understand that this child, this woman, this teen, whichever age group the woman falls into, must be compared to diamonds and dirt or rubies and rocks. Now, this narrative of comparing women to diamonds or dirt, rubies or rocks are only used in comparison to women, and men are measured in two values: high value, which is whatever the current scammer says it is, and then low value, which comes with the possibility of becoming high value if you just buy my How to Be a Real Man book or course. The whole diamonds and dirt analogy does not hold up, like not at all. In the comparison, they're saying, well, that means that some women can be compared to dirt, which has no value at all. Except for all those plants, dirt grows so we could have a food source, shade from the sun. Oh, and oxygen. Dirt that covers rocks so we can have paths and potentially roadways to travel from one place to another, like those food sources dirt grows. And without dirt, what you get is rocks and desert, arid areas, places where things don't grow, places that are potentially harmful to the human body. So how is dirt worthless again? Well, diamonds, on the other hand, are carbonized rocks which exist in abundance, whose values are inflated by racist, rich white men in order to continue to make as much profit as possible. The same goes for rubies. There are no actual value on a diamond or a ruby other than what certain people put on them. Diamonds have their uses. Diamond tip needles, diamond drills, you can use these things, but in the end they're no more valuable than sand, which you can make glass out of. You can't burn a diamond to get heat. You can't burn a ruby to get heat. You can't build a home with diamonds. You most certainly cannot build a building or a kitchen or a farmhouse with rubies. But, and once again I'm going to point out, diamonds and rubies only have values that specifically very wealthy, very racist, very horrible, and inhumane rich white men place on them. It is very well known that the De Beers family has diamonds in abundance, practically a mountain full, but they peter them out and then pretend like they have a value they can't possibly have with the amount these people actually get. And in mining these diamonds and rubies, they exploit children and mothers and families and people of color, especially Africans, So how is it that dirt, which has all the uses in the world that human beings need, is the useless thing, is the unvalued thing, and diamonds and rubies, which are artificially inflated by these rich white men, has the more value? So she's saying that the high value thing is a diamond and rubies, whose values are nothing more than a fantasy. And the low value thing, the thing that's worthless, is the dirt. And that's why that whole analogy just falls apart. You're making a false comparison. Or, as Inigo Montoya used to say, you keep saying those words. I don't think they mean what you think it means. Now, I'm not going to play the rest of her diamonds and dirt comparison. I'm going to skip to something else she said that annoyed me, which, okay, arguably is the entirety of her video. But this isn't just about her. Let's not forget Mr. Hotep Woman Hater. Mr. I can't get none and it's all women's fault. Oh, he doesn't say this, but it's so obvious. I think that he hasn't learned that if you wear your red flags on your sleeves, women kind of say no to that. But her whole, whoa, I gotta teach my sons the difference between diamond and dirt and rubies and rocks. Wow, the pick-me powers are strong in that one. And what she's doing here, let me make this clear, is pure evil on every level. She is dehumanizing a group, black women, in order to say that anything that happens to them is justified because they're not humans, they're dirt, they're not worthless. So you can't beat one up, you can't essay one. Or on the other hand, the part I'm not playing where she goes, and diamonds are kept in glass cases. So even her so-called high-valued women are to be kept and looked at and praised for their beauty. Yeah, you know, that doesn't take feminism too far back. I mean, unless you want to party like it's 1699.
Expecting a man to risk his well-being, his future, and his life on someone who does not see value in themselves or the man is asinine. That's a very asinine thing to ask.
She's gaslighting everything by acting as if, no, I'm not actually calling them dirt. They think of themselves that way because they let themselves get attacked. So it's not my fault they're dirt. I'm merely pointing out that there's diamonds and dirt. What a load of bullshit. Because I'd ask, well, what if women don't think of themselves as dirt? You're the one who came up with the word. They didn't say that. This is your opinion on someone else's actions as you perceive them. But you see, inherent in this argument is, well, what women think their right to have the autonomy of deciding who they are and what they want to be doesn't matter here. What matters is mine and other people's perceptions. What matters is the perceptions of the protectors. Because what really matters is if the protectors, Hotep's incels, right-wingers, completely dysfunctional men who wear red flags as underwear, they need to pick her. Because that's what this is all about. Pick me. Pick me. I don't think like that. I don't want to choose for myself. I want to be a diamond in a glass case. Because it's obvious that submissive Barbie over here sees herself that way. She says, well, listen, if you do not live up to a standard I and these type of men set, men are not obligated to protect you. Remember what I said before, that if you can dehumanize somebody to saying they're worthless as so-called dirt, then anything that happens to them is all their fault. The same way white people say, well, we enslaved you because you was not civilized. You didn't have our European civilization. And without us, you wouldn't be misogynist and racist towards each other. See what we gave you? It's the same exact argument. And the interesting part of this argument is, if men are the so-called protectors, what does a woman do when the so-called protectors are the ones who are the perpetrators of most of the violence against women? The fact of the matter is, you could not possibly, as a black person or person of color, reach the body count of white people towards black people. That's an absolute fact. What people try to gloss over white people's universal treatment of black people across this planet is how much murder is involved in it. However, when we are trying to stake a claim in these societies we were dragged into or our own, when we are trying to in some way, shape, or form free ourselves of the shackles of white supremacy and colonization and over 500 years of chattel slavery, not to mention the direct rape of our lands, the theft of all our resources, and the endless propaganda that is heaped against black people. How do we do this? By adopting these same ideas that these people have. Misogyny has been a problem in the black community like forever. And what we're basically doing is pushing aside half our army. Even though in every instance of any black or African push revolution, march, whatever you want to call it, to throw off the shackles or gain more rights and freedom, black women are always at the forefront. However, with this woman's way of thinking, well, are they diamonds or dirt? Let's go ask Angela Davis. Hey, diamond or dirt? You know, Angela Davis is quite pissed with the behavior of black men in the movement. And I got news for you. She has every right to be, considering how they have treated her. What do you get with a situation where a sister's being treated by white leftists better than they are by her own black men? What is that about? But when you have women with theories like this, it leads to what I was talking about when I replied to the clip before this one. No matter what numbers you show, it shows that there's a lot of violence towards women. And most of that violence, most of the SA, is about proximity. Women have reported being molested by people they know, people they care about, friends, boyfriends, husbands, more than the stranger hiding in the bushes. Attacks on young children in any way, shape, or form is usually by adults who are assigned to care for them. That could be an adoptee, that could be a teacher, that could be a counselor, that could be a sports doctor for Olympian class athletes, that could be a father, that could be a mother. But when you go look at the data, it's insane to see how much this happens. The pure denial we have about it. Is it a wonder that women are just pissed off about all this when they have to hear crap like this? Because not only what she says is completely idiotic, all this stuff she's talking also has the added feature of being absolutely evil AF. What she's doing is dehumanizing a group of women, black women, and saying by sheer fact of her dehumanization, anything that happens to them is okay because they're not diamonds, they're not rubies, they're dirts and rocks. And you could pick up dirts and rock anywhere. That's what she said. So we got Hotep Black Incel duetting Pick Me Barbie with one of the worst takes ever on protecting black women. And they cannot see how ridiculous what they're saying is, nor they can't see how completely evil. So good for them.
Is 100% worth it to receive the protection that I've been getting my whole life.
Protection requires you black women to give up control, to submit, to be his sex doll and sandwich maker. And if he watches enough porn, he'll want you to be both. Be a virgin, because according to this type of philosophy, virgins aren't dirt until they're assaulted. So if you want protection, black women, you must sacrifice control. Because don't you want to be protected? Now I could talk about how on the nose Hitler fascist this idea is. But that's obvious to anyone who graduated middle school. I could rant all day about the pure pick-me this statement she made represents. I mean, seriously, my mind boggles at women who want to be pick-me's. I think it's a trip, all the sisters who want to be pick-me's. Women who, for the sake of protection, want to sacrifice their autonomy and creativity just to be a Misogynoir's fantasy woman, which literally makes her a tool for literal evil. I could do that. I could talk about that. But I'm not. Because there's something important that would get lost with focusing only on that. And let's face fact, that's the obvious. You just gotta listen to this woman to pick up on everything I'm saying about what she's saying. No, the part that gets lost, the part that we're not focusing on is that protection part. Because the whole idea, the whole argument behind protecting black women is exactly how you know how toxic and regressive it's on every side of evil you can name. Because misogyny is evil. Misogynoir is evil. Now, I am 61 years old, and I have spent a lot of time being part of or adjacent to lots of activist groups, mostly in New York, some in Florida, some in New Jersey. My parents were the same. They were part of the Black Panthers Party. For a time, we were part of the Nation of Islam. When you hear about historic events like the Ocean Hill-Brownsville fight, my parents were part of that. I remember being a teenager and seeing Free Mamiya signs everywhere and all them meeting for strategies on how they're going to do it. I remember my father is the first one to hand me the list of all the companies who had interests in South Africa during apartheid, and he wanted us to actively avoid buying products from these companies. I was in the back office when the New York Panthers chased off the California Panthers at gunpoint, mostly because the California Panthers, or the West Coast Panthers, were misogynist AF and nobody in New York was having it. And if you want to read more about that that kind of thing, read Elaine Brown's A Taste of Power. She has a lot to say about what went on during the height of the Black Panther Party. Now, back then, it was called being conscious. Now, it's just called woke. And there's nothing wrong with the definition of either of those things, and no right-wing asshole will ever ruin the word woke, at least not for me. But I digress. Throughout every form of movement there was a trope. There are several tropes, but this relates to what we're talking about. The trope was a kind of mix-up, a bastardization of African history, where a nationalist or a leftist, a Nation of Islam will go, well, when we were in Africa, men were the protectors. Men are still the protectors, and women are the nurturers. Does that make sense to you? Let me explain. Europe, all the countries of Europe, has been after the resources of Africa since way before the 1400s. It was only during the early and mid 1400s that they began their big push to colonize the entire place. This is when they settled on racism, white supremacy. Back then they had a different name for it, a unity of Christian cultures all across Europe. When it came down to it, all the tenets were the same, all the things they said were the same. And Portugal specifically literally wrote the book on how to perform white supremacy against African people. Now we're also talking about the 1100s, 1300s, 1200s. Europe, various countries were constantly trying to get up all in Africa. They got a foothold in Kemet, which they now call Egypt. But that was also complicated because the Arabs too were trying to get their piece of Africa. During this time, when the Europeans decided to literally march their armies in and start taking over shit, they encountered vast armies from almost every African nation they tried to take over back then. And if you really go look at the history, you will find that from the moment they began their push to colonize and take Africa, it seemed to take generations, literal centuries. That is a literal number because African nations had vast armies of men and women, and these armies were very hard to beat. Even when Europe eventually got gun technology, it was very hard to beat the Africans down, and they tried and tried and tried until they finally got us in a position across the world where we are now. And if you want to be frank about it, they have absolutely no intention on picking us up from that condition because that is a direct threat to their power. But everybody would say this. Go to a Nation of Islam meeting. Go listen to what these brothers say, what the ministers say. Women were nurturers. How the Nation of Islam set up reflects this belief. Go read any of the hardcore nationalists. Listen to what they're saying. They all point to men are the protectors and women are the nurturers. So this whole men are protectors has been around for a very long time. It's not new. It's just wrong. And it's a little insane considering, okay, I'm 61 years old. I've been hearing the men are protectors stuff since at least I was 5 or 6, where my earliest memories come from. So black men are black women's protectors, huh? Well, I got news for you. You're doing an awful job. The numbers of SA, the numbers of intergroup violence, domestic violence, attack on our children, our young girls, mostly come from black men. Because these type of assaults are mostly proximity things. And since white people have constantly worked to segregate black people since the end of slavery, of course, when you get people who do these things, they're going to do it within their own group. But the numbers are absolutely horrible. Look at these numbers. Here goes the statistics on assaults against black women. So how are they protected? Black women are coming to social media and telling you they don't feel safe. Why? A guy asks a woman her number. She says no, he gets violent. I get it doesn't feel good to get turned down, but I do not understand why violence is the answer. And then when a man commits violence against a woman, everybody has an excuse for it. This young woman is really answering to a young woman called Ro, who was hit in the face with a brick after refusing to give her number to someone who asked her for it. And when all was said and done, everyone became TikTok investigators. Because the other part of Rhodes' story was that there was a bunch of black men standing around watching this happen, doing nothing. A couple of weeks ago, a mother was attacked by a man, and her son had to come back with a gun and shoot the guy. And everybody is arguing not what the man did, but about, well, the son shouldn't have done that. What kind of mother is this that the son pulled out a gun? When all the son was doing was protecting his mother from someone who's violently attacked her. But the other part of the story was all the black men standing around just letting that happen. Seriously. So please explain to me how you're protectors, but when you're called upon to protect, you don't do it. How is it our women are not feeling safe if men are the protectors? I mean, if we really want to get rightfully pedantic about it, all women are saying they don't feel protected. And if white women, who are the most protected class under white supremacy say we don't feel protected. Well, you remember the old saying of if white people get a cold, black people get the flu. How the hell do you think black women feel? Now, everybody will act like, well, what about the white supremacy? Sandra Bland, what about Breonna Taylor? That's true too. That's one of the reasons why black women have been at the forefront of almost every movement we've had. But they're always met with misogyny from black men. Isn't that exactly what this young woman is basically trying to say? If you're assaulted by a man who she defines as protector, then it's your fault for not listening to other men who she defines as protectors. You have to listen to them and give up control and autonomy, but at least you'll be protected. And the problem is that's not protection, that's submission. And when you submit to people who follow and believe in the evil like misogyny, or as we say, misogynoir, you're not being protected. You're being used, you're being disgraced, you're being abused. These are my guys who are sitting here at 25, at 30, at 40, bitching and moaning about girls who would not date or sleep with them from high school. And this is the people she wants you to submit to. These are the people who keep claiming to be protectors. How interesting it is that the last thing you do is protect anybody, especially black women. This young woman is making the protection of black women a question. It's up for debate. And I'm like, well, how the hell is this up for debate? If you're the protectors, why are they so afraid to even be alone with you? If black men are the protectors of black women, you failed. And it sucks that you would still make the claim even though you don't do the job right. Because black women feel a lot of things. But you know the one thing they don't feel? They don't feel protected. They don't feel safe. They are coming up on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, and telling you straight up, brothers, y'all do not make us feel safe. As a matter of fact, y'all make us feel the opposite of safe. And what is men's reaction, especially the incel right-wing dude bro brothers who have to be as bad as MAGA because reasons? What is their reaction? To be as awful as they want to be, and by default proving black women's point that they have no reason to feel safe. This brother has a commentary afterward, and he sounds like a chucklehead. Should I play some? Do you want to hear some of what he said?
Somebody say, who is this woman? Somebody, y'all, what a single man at? This is the type of woman. Y'all out here messing with these little hoochie mamas. Get you a woman that got a brain that's sane. Do you hear what she's saying? She has so much respect. I know this ain't even about her, but I'm just making it about her. She got so much respect for her father. She don't have daddy issues, and her brothers. These are the type of women y'all need to marry, bro.
It goes on like that for pretty much the rest of the video. And if you need a knock against your mental health, I could link it in the description, so I'll do that. And you can go back and listen to the whole video just to make sure I'm not just clipping them. Well, I'm clipping him, but I'll even tag him to let him know there was a response to his video. I am going to create a shorter TikTok version, so the tag will be there. Other than that, all I can do is give you the link. But to be perfectly honest, I tend to block people like this. I don't bother with them because we don't need backwards thinking men with Peter Pan complexes. You know, those who never grew up, those who will not evolve their minds. We just don't need that. That's why I'm not playing his whole thing. You could find people like him all over the place that's fresh and fit. You could watch old videos of Kevin Samuels if you really want to rot your brain. You can get all confused by Umar Johnson if you want, whose hotepery is totally disguised in an ideal of helping black people. Because guys like this are your Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate fans. These are the type of men who think Joe Rogan is brilliant for some reason. There's no changing people like this young lady or this young man's minds. There just isn't, and there's no point to. They're going to either grow or they're not going to grow. I'm not their parent. Part of our liberation, our fight for freedom, our fight for separation from all this racism, white supremacy will absolutely mean we're just going to have to throw away some trash. We're going to have to realize that the body has cancer, and you don't mollify cancer. You cut it out. But that's my personal beliefs on people like this. And this is the kind of young woman that he claims has brains. she gets it because she's willing to submit. She's willing to bow down to her protectors. And she's just doing the job pick-me's aspire to. And unfortunately, if this is her thinking, she's only going to end up a victim to black men like this. But hold on for a second. That does not mean that she is responsible for him being a shitty human being. Let's move off her for a second. Let's talk about some glaring, semi-well-known examples. Candace Owens and YouTube creator Shuan Head. I'm going to start with the white girl first. Shuan Head is a well-known racist and anti-feminist. She came into prominence during the Gamergate era where she was doing videos agreeing with everything that violent hate group espoused. And remember that Gamergate was nothing more than a bunch of misogynist racists, or racist misogynists, they're quite interchangeable, whose only goal was to harass, to stalk, to attack, to assault, to send bomb threats to people they disagreed with. And they in fact accomplished harassing and stalking and violently attacking and sending bomb threats. Gamergate, as far as an internet entity, was what the Klan is in real life. Considering that there were Klan members and Nazis at the head of it, and I include actor Adam Baldwin, it's not really a surprise. But Shuan Head was the female pick-me who agreed with the anti-SJWs. That's what they called themselves, people like Amazing Atheist, Armored Skeptic, who I believe dated or had some kind of relationship with Shuan Head, Sargon of Akkad. I mean, all the awful, super racist, hyper-misogynist YouTube creators who all banded together to defend every single action Gamergate committed to. Now, according to the stories that some so-called leftists tried to tell me, during Bernie Sanders' first run for president, Shuan Head had some kind of epiphany and she seemed to backtrack a lot of the things that she was saying before. I have had trans creators tell me, well, you know, she's a great person now, and I'm going to be frank with you, I don't believe it. Every time I encounter Shuan Head, she's always making excuses for her behavior during Gamergate. Gamergate was a hate group. Gamergate did violently attack people. Shuan Head was part of that group. Shuan Head's attitudes now are not too far away from this group. The first time I saw what I saw was a young woman, and I realized that the circle that she was surrounding herself with would literally eat her alive. There will be incidents. It doesn't matter how much of a pick-me you are. Sexual assaulters are sexual assaulters, and they're not going to give you a pass because you're in their corner. Now, that was my opinion way back at, I think it was 2013 or 14. When I spoke with her and she gave her replies, I was, oh, okay, this is just as much of a monster as half the people she's hanging around with, so okay. But here's the thing. I believe it happened. I believe that it happened, and this young woman has put herself in a position where she can't admit it happened. She surrounds herself with awful people, including the creator who calls himself Armored Skeptic. That was a terrible person. That was a red flag in pants. So there's no way that young woman came out of a relationship with that guy unscathed. I just don't think she can talk about it. Why? Because of the immediate judgment. She jumped to racism. She jumped to SJW. She jumped to defending every action Gamergate committed to. So now to admit that the very same people whose side you was on might have done something terrible to you is hard. But if she said it, I believe her. I don't know if I go so far as to help her, but I'm not going to dog her for it. Because no matter what kind of person she is, such an assault, such an attack, such incidents are misogynist, and they're evil even when done to Shuan Head. Same goes for Candace Owens. Come on, we all know that Candace Owens is a grifting trash person. But Candace Owens is only grifting the right wing. Candace Owens says things that they agree with. And the type of people she's siding with will turn on her eventually because she's a black woman, like it or not. And when that happens, I'm not going to exactly feel sympathy. If the woman passes, you're not going to get no flowers or poor Candace from me. But at the same time, I am not going to blame her for the attack that's going to come because these are the people she surrounds herself with. They can't help themselves. They're monsters. But I am very clear that if anyone attacks this woman, how could she admit it? Look what happened when Stacey Dash tried to come back. And I'm not disagreeing with the black community's reaction to Stacey Dash trying to come back. I believe she got karmically exactly what she deserved. But if Stacey Dash was attacked by one of these monsters, I'm gonna be like, no, that was an attack. My overall point is, just because these people have issues does not mean that if something happens to them, it's suddenly their fault because of the choices they made. I'm not disagreeing that people can make bad choices. What I am saying is we gotta have perspective here. If a woman is assaulted, she's assaulted. I didn't like any of those women who came forth on Fox News charging all those commentators and producers of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct, but I believed them because they were in fact working around people who thought sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, assault was something men just had a right to do. Now, would I donate to those young women's legal campaign? Hell no. But I'm not going to immediately absolve the men because I feel, hey, you went to work for Fox News, what did you expect? Because that's a shitty way of thinking about it. The only thoughts here is that misogyny is a problem in the black community because it's one of those things that hold us back. It's one of those things where we don't need enemies and we're going to be our own enemies. And I did not say that people like Candace Owens or Shuan Head did not need to get accountability for their very shitty actions. I'm just saying that the accountability can't be to agreeing with evil. If Shuan Head is attacked by the type of people she's hanging around in, that is not Shuan Head's fault. That is the fault of the attacker. If Candace Owens is attacked by the people she chooses to side with, yes, she's an idiot for choosing to side with these monsters, but it's still the monster's fault she was attacked. If the young lady who espoused all those toxic views I just took apart is attacked by the young man who's duetting her, that is not her fault just because she chose to be a pick-me. First, let's punish the attacker because the attack is the most evil part. Yes, the young lady is lending into the atmosphere that causes men to think it's perfectly okay to attack women like this, to treat women like this. But that does not make their attack or treatment of women better. Two things can be true at once here. If a woman is assaulted, attacked, great, whatever it is, that is the fault of the attacker, the so-called protector. I don't like Megan Thee Stallion's music. I don't like the fact that she used the N-word. I don't like the fact she used the B-word. I think that, okay, push the envelope, but maybe you go a little bit too far sometimes, and I'd really like to have a debate on what constitutes empowerment, but that's not me. Megan Thee Stallion is not from my generation. She's not my thing. And I found that there are many mixes and mashups that have her in it where I'm not annoyed by her at all. But Megan Thee Stallion was shot. I don't even understand how people question that. I don't like her music, but she was shot by that dude. That motherfucker shot that woman, and I am not going to sit up here defending him because I don't like her music. But the point of this is that when that happened to Megan Thee Stallion, I didn't see the community protecting her. I saw the community questioning her. And I'm sitting there like, what? Well, she does those sexual raps. What does that have to do with the fact that the guy shot her? And she has a foul mouth. What does that have to do with the fact the guy shot her? Maybe she did something for the guy to shoot her. Seriously. And this is what makes me worry about people who make these opinions having daughters. Like, Jesus, you're going to blame your daughters every time something happens to her? This is the thing black men need to correct. The first thing they need to do is stop listening to people like this guy. But the second thing they need to do is, if you're going to say you're protecting the community, protect the goddamn community, and stop telling the community that their protection comes with a price. But what about this overall question of protecting black women? I want to thank Shane Spear, one of my favorite video essayists, for bringing this quote in her latest video, TikTok Feminist Coaching and Authenticizing Racism. It's a great video, you should watch it. But this quote just happens to be from Bell Hooks, and it fits exactly what I'm trying to say in this video. So let's let Shane Spear read it.
Bell Hooks once wrote that no other group in America has so had their identity socialized out of existence as have black women. When women are talked about, racism militates against a recognition of black female interests. When women are talked about, the focus tends to be on white women.
Link to her fantastic video in the description. It's a must watch because the video I'm reacting to uses weaponized identity politics. as a thinly veiled mask for misogynoir. It's all the rage with all the toxic content creators like this guy. And it's absolutely what this video uses. Weaponized identity politics. And identity politics is one of racism's most potent weapons against anybody who it wants to marginalize. And I assume that we're all sophisticated enough to know that racism and white supremacy marginalizes whoever the hell it wants to. Its main target just happens to be black people, descendant of Africans. That still makes identity politics one of racism's most potent weapons against black people, especially against black women. So what's the goal here? I mean, the young woman's goal is obviously to put out her video CV for the lucrative position of pick-me, C, victim. And the young man's goal is to, well, be as awful as possible for clicks. He's one of those grifters that don't mind a negative reaction. He wants everyone to come to his video and scream at him for his obvious misogynoir. Obviously, he's a fan of Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate and Umar Johnson. You know, the most prominent assholes in this sphere. And of course, his goal is to team up with other black men who hate black women. It's a niche, you know. That's why Fresh and Fit has a channel. But I can't rock with anybody whose entire goal is to never grow past the age of the gum stuck on his shoe. And let's be frank, both of their goals are easy to suss out. They both are capping for misogynoir. They're both just selling out to the system. If they really believe it, they're selling it out to project their toxic beliefs. If it's just a grift, they're selling out for some bucks. But they're still selling out to the system because this type of thing is what the system wants. We all know this. We all get this. And if you don't get this, what are you doing on my channel? Go away. This is for people who get it. So what is my goal here? Well, my goal is to point out how misogyny works. And this video is perfect for pointing out exactly how misogyny works. Or should I say, this video is excellent for pointing out how misogynoir works because that is the focus. Because misogyny negatively affects women worldwide, all women. Misogynoir specifically affects black women. And its origins is specifically from mostly black men. There's only one thing that beats misogynoir, and that's racism and white supremacy. Because racism and white supremacy is a gift that just keeps on giving. And misogyny, and especially misogynoir, are one of those gifts that it keeps giving us. Because misogynoir is a constant attack against black women that affects every single walk of life, be it politics, entertainment, or pop culture, education, employment, marriages, be it just dating, period. Misogynoir attacks black women on every level, and it is something they have to put up with every moment of their lives. This is why I made it a point to say that if something happens to this young woman, as much as I don't agree with her, as much as her pick-me energy is laughable, it is not her fault if, let's say, this young man attacks her. That's on him, not her. Who am I to question to any woman's reaction to this behavior that branches out to the entire society and then comes back to their own community? Because on a certain level, misogyny affords a certain protection towards white women. Under misogyny, white women are the most protected species in the white people animal column. Unfortunately, that protection comes with a metric ton of negativity, which leads to harm and unaliving. However, misogynoir affords black women no protection at all. This is because if you're going to make a cogent comparison between black women and white women, you cannot leave out the legacy of slavery. If white women are the goal of femininity, you've got to have a goal not to aspire to. That is how the system works. It doesn't just elevate one group, it also marginalizes and dehumanizes another in order to bolster that elevation. So white women are elevated negatively, and black women are de-elevated, dehumanized, marginalized, infantilized. That's the difference between misogyny and misogynoir, especially since misogynoir exclusively affects black women. Black people do have to deal with racism, but black women specifically have to deal with intergroup racism, which we call colorism, and intergroup sexism, which we call misogynoir. And it's not just for men, only it's men who have to correct their thinking and change this paradigm. Misogynoir is a privilege for black men. It's a false privilege, but a privilege just the same. And when anyone in this system has a privilege, and I'm really looking at you white people, then it's the job of the ones with that specific privilege to use that privilege to correct an evil. And you correct the evil that is literally not making our women, our young women, our girls, our children feel safe. Because when you correct it, then they start feeling safe. And that's what makes you leaders. It does not make you exclusive protectors, because we are here to protect each other. It is not up to one group to protect another. We're in this together. Racism affects us all. It is an evil practice against all black people around the world. And it basically connects us, like it or not. But if you think that you're just supposed to be the protector based on women's behavior, if you think misogynoir is the way to go, if this video is something you agree with, then that makes you a problem, not a solution. You are not protecting black women. You are not protecting the community. You are not even protecting yourselves. You're buying into and spreading an evil that is only there to hold us back. And that's what makes you black men part of the problem. And I think it's high time that black men stop being the problem and start working hard on becoming the solution. Thank you for watching.